Hi, my name is Violet, and today I'm going to be talking about my summer internship. For a quick introduction, I'm a senior at the University of North Texas, majoring in professional and technical communication, and also pursuing a digital media studies certificate, and I'm pursuing a career in UX design. Before my internship, I applied for quite a few UX and UI design related internships, as well as UX content strategy and just content strategy in general, but I really wanted to do UX design. I applied for CDW because their company culture is really healthy and they really promote a work-life balance because they understand that happy employees lead to a better product. So that was something that widely appealed to me. They're also a very large company, so being able to work with an established design system was something I really wanted to do. For my interviews, my first interview was with a recruiter who asked me a lot of questions about what my degree was and was really impressed that I was getting a degree in technical communication and that I was taking classes that both had UX aspects and were focusing on UX, because that gave me more of an advantage than other people who might want to pursue UX who don't have those classes at their university or aren't able to major in something like that. My second interview was with my manager, who I walked her through my 3550 project, which was content strategy. It was a redesign of the Opalescence website, and being able to walk her through my research and process and then my wireframes really impressed her. And I was also able to ask her during the interview, which I would highly recommend, what software I would need to learn or what software that they use so that I could become familiar with it. But a lot of the things that we learn as TechComm students in our UX courses, like Photoshop and Illustrator and XD and Figma and Optimal Workshop and user testing, are used throughout the industry. So it's really good to be able to master those skills at your time at UNT. My role was as the UX design intern, and I worked in tandem with the UI design intern and the UX content strategy intern to complete a couple of projects. Our team overall was the digital design team, which consisted of UX content and research, UX design, and UI design, all working together to work on different pages, and there were little groups of people within that. I also had some great resources in that I had a buddy who was another UX designer who was able to help me along the way and teach me a lot of things about UX and using certain programs. A mentor who was a UX researcher who really helped me with the research aspect of my project and also helped me get familiar with different parts of the UX field. And then my manager, product design manager, was super helpful in helping me understand the broader scale of my project and understand what my roles were and what I needed to do. So a quick project overview, exiting the screen for a second. I'm going to be walking through the purchase authorization system, which is the main project that we worked on. So for a before, the purchase authorization system is a system that allows admin to be able to set rules for purchasers that have assigned approvers to prevent overspending. So this system is something used by admin, all different industries. This is the workflow list page. Obviously, a really big issue is that it's not designed for smaller screens. On my MacBook, which was a 13-inch that I used for work, this was fine, but this is an 11-inch computer and it's not showing up as it's supposed to. So an issue there to start. This delete workflow button is super prominent, and that's not a feature that's good to promote. We don't want to promote getting rid of things. We want to promote adding things as much as possible. When you enter this drop down, this link leads to viewing and editing a workflow, but there's nothing really indicating that. And when you enter this drop down, these details are kind of difficult to see. For outstanding workflows that don't have purchasers or approvers, this can be an issue because it means that purchasers can't actually use the workflow until either purchasers or approvers are added, but there's nothing marking that, so it can be really easy to skip over until a purchaser says something to their manager about it. And then the workflow tutorial link is all the way down at the bottom, which can be really difficult to find for novice users. In the create a new workflow page, you start off by naming your workflow. And then you'll select and set up your rules. So the order in which you select your rules affects the order in which they're implemented, which isn't something that's really shown here. So you'll start by selecting your rule. To deselect, you just click it again, or you don't. To deselect, you're supposed to click this X right here, which I don't have access to, or click another rule. So I'm going to use this rule because it has a fillable field. The fillable fields in this are really easy to skip over, and it seems like you want to go ahead and either add or edit approvers, add another rule, or continue. But you do have to fill out this field first, and then you can add and edit approvers, which is a step that's nested within this step. It's a pop-up. It's really difficult to see this show selected right here because it's against a very similarly colored background, and this continue without approvers is very prominent, which is, again, not a feature that's good to promote because if you continue without approvers, it can't be used. So assigning your approvers will take you to adding purchasers. It's another pop-up that shoots you to the bottom of the page. We have the same issue with show selected, and then the same issue with continue without purchasers. So after that, the main issue with this kind of viewing phase is that it's difficult to see the details, especially when it comes to rules and approvers. It's really difficult to see what approvers you have unless you go into this edit step, which is pretty small and kind of difficult to see, really easy to skip over. So then you go ahead and activate your workflow. And then going down to the bottom, we have the workflow tutorial. This header cuts out the link to create a new workflow. There's not really any introduction that tells you what workflows are for or any information about them. The format of this entire page doesn't match anything else within the website, and these containers are all different sizes. The content focuses a lot more on explaining what PASS is for rather than how to create a workflow, and some of these screenshots are even outdated. These images are also pretty small, and the only way to see them better is to zoom, but depending on what system you use, that can be kind of difficult, and you can't enlarge the images at all. So now I will present our updates. So to start off with the workflow list page, we put the past workflow tutorial link up at the top here so that it's super easy access. It always stays there, and it's in a familiar and intuitive spot for new users. We added this edit button feature right next to the view edit link for each of these workflows. And then the delete function is now nested into this dropdown for the workflow preview. So it's still fairly easy access, but it's not too easy. And then for outstanding workflows that don't have approvers or purchasers, there's a little red exclamation point here that shows the user that they need to come back to it. There's also a hover message that comes with it. And then when you delete a workflow, you can now undo it. So you'll get this pop-up right here that says undo. And once you do it, you'll get another pop-up that says restored if you choose to restore it. For the create a new workflow page, you'll start by naming your workflow. And as you can see, we have 4 steps now with parallel structure and names. So now add rules and add approvers are 2 separate steps. That way users can focus on one thing at a time. You can't go to the review portion until you have selected a step. So once you select it, you'll get this little green check mark that marks that you've selected it with a big black border behind it. That way you can see that you've already selected it and you can't select it again. For rules with fillable fields, it'll be in pink right here to kind of catch your eye and prompt you that you need to fill that out before you can review. And you can also eliminate a rule by hovering over it and pressing this minus right here. So then you'll have this review step where you can click and drag the rules to rearrange them, or you can delete them from right here, or you can go back if you need to, and then you can continue on to adding approvers. Adding approvers, you'll click the rule that you want to add approvers on, and then you'll go ahead and add your approvers for that. So you'll do it based on rule. And then to add purchasers, it's the same format, just all for one, because you add purchasers for the whole order, not based on a certain rule. And then you can add purchasers from there. From there, we have the screen here that shows a completed workflow. All of that information with all of the rule information and descriptions, approver information, and purchaser information is super easy to see, and you don't have to click on these edit buttons in order to see all of the details that come with that. And then for the workflow tutorial page, a really big focus with this page was making it match the design choices used within the rest of the redesigned site. We also did a little introduction with a table of contents here so that users can kind of see how long this is, how much it's going to take, and a little preview of what the Create a New Workflow feature is for. We have a video tutorial as well that we created. I don't have it on this computer, but we created a video tutorial that's about 2 minutes long that can show users what all the different steps mean. And the main purpose of that was to provide a visual for users who might need a little bit more help or want a little bit more information. We simplified the steps within the actual tutorial. We made these containers larger so that the images can be larger so a user won't need to zoom in. And we wanted to keep the steps and instructions short and sweet and make it straight to the point for users. At the end of the tutorial, we also have a screenshot of a completed workflow so that users can see what that is supposed to look like. And then another banner at the bottom prompting them to create a workflow. Going back to the slideshow, what I learned from this, the major things I learned from this internship were utilizing UX best practices. A really big focus, especially with the Create a New Workflow page, was minimizing clicks and making it a more aesthetic and intuitive experience for customers. We user tested dividing up the steps for adding rules and adding approvers and got really good results, where a lot of the people tested mentioned that the sequence of it really led them to success and that they didn't feel like they needed extra instruction because of how sequential that flow was. Also learned how to work with existing style guides and updated designs, which is something I hadn't really done much before. I had created my own style guides for personal projects, but I hadn't worked with an existing one. And being able to take components from other designs, from pages that are being updated by other UX and UI designers was really helpful and was a really neat experience. I learned a lot in the way of collaboration and teamwork. We had a couple of different approaches to how we approached our projects from the start, but towards the end of it, we had things divided up really well into UX, UI, and content, and it was really great to be able to work as a team in that way. And then we also had a lot of opportunity throughout different meetings in the week to get critiques and feedback from other UX and UI designers through things like weekly peer reviews and UX huddles. So being able to get that feedback from professionals was incredibly helpful. My recommendations for another TechComm student interested in pursuing an internship, especially a UX design internship, is to use your TechComm projects in your portfolio and especially in your interviews. If you're able to walk through a project you've already done in an interview, it really shows that A, you can talk and tell the story of a project or a product, and B, that you're knowledgeable and have a starting point. You have some familiarity within what you want to do. I would also recommend utilizing your time as a TechComm student to both gain and give constructive insight to your peers. There's a lot of opportunity in this classes for peer reviews, and I feel like people have a tendency to be timid as students because you only know so much, but I do think it's really important to use this as a learning opportunity for both yourself and your peers, and be able to respectfully critique each other's work while telling each other why you made a certain decision, why you did what you did. And that's all. Thank you.